Picture this. You're standing in a line that stretches halfway around the casino floor. The smell of prime rib, crab legs, and fresh-baked rolls hits you before you even round the corner. You hand over a few dollars, maybe 5, maybe 8, and for the next 2 hours, nobody can tell you what you can and can't eat. That was the Vegas buffet. That was the promise. And somewhere between a Wall Street earnings call and a celebrity chef's Instagram account, they took it from us and never looked back. Hi, my name is Michael, and this is Old Vegas Legends. What the buffet actually was. Let me be very clear about something before we go any further. The Vegas buffet was not just a meal. It was not a dining option. It was not an amenity. It was a social contract between the casino and the ordinary American. And if you didn't grow up going to Vegas with your family in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, you may not fully understand what that contract looked like. So let me paint you a picture. It is 1978. You are a school teacher from Akron, Ohio. You have saved for 18 months for this trip. You and your husband load the kids into the station wagon, drive to the airport, and fly to Las Vegas on a budget that, by today's standards, would barely cover a single resort fee. You walk into the Fremont Hotel. You pay $1.75. And what do you get? Roast beef carved at the station. Shrimp. Real shrimp, not the frozen cocktail kind. Macaroni and cheese for the kids. 4 kinds of pie. Soft serve ice cream at the end. And coffee, included, obviously, because this is America and you do not charge a person extra for coffee. That meal costs less than a gallon of gasoline, and you felt, maybe for the first time in a long time, like somebody was treating you right. That is what the buffet was. It was the great equalizer. The construction worker from Cleveland sitting 3 tables over from the oil executive from Houston. Both eating the same prime rib, both paying the same price. As one longtime Vegas regular put it on Reddit, the buffet was the one place on the Strip where your net worth didn't determine whether you got a decent meal. Historians of Las Vegas will tell you the buffet traces back to 1946, when Herb McDonald, entertainment director at the El Rancho Vegas, needed to feed a crowd of late-night gamblers without shutting down the casino floor. He threw every leftover item from the kitchen onto a table, charged $1, and called it the Buckaroo Buffet. The idea was simple. Keep people in the building, keep them fed, keep them gambling. The buffet was never charity, it was strategy. Brilliant, democratic, mutually beneficial strategy. And for 5 decades, it worked. The golden era, showmanship on a plate. If you want to understand how good the Vegas buffet got at its peak, you need to understand the competitive insanity that defined this city from the 1960s through the late 1990s. Every major property on the Strip and downtown was locked in a permanent war for your attention, your loyalty, and your gambling dollars. And the buffet was one of the primary battlefields. The Horseshoe Casino downtown ran a buffet so legendary that regulars would drive from Henderson, from Boulder City, from the outskirts of the valley just to eat there on a Tuesday. The Stardust, rest its soul, had a Sunday champagne brunch that people planned their Vegas trips around. Not the shows, not the casino, the brunch. Think about that for a moment. People were buying plane tickets to eat at a buffet. That is not a restaurant. That is a cultural phenomenon. The MGM Grand Buffet in the early 90s was so aggressively loaded with product that employees reportedly nicknamed it the Trough. And I say that with the deepest possible affection. 75 feet of food stations, seafood, carving stations, a full dessert section that had its own dedicated line. And here is the thing that nobody talks about anymore. The quality was real. This was not steam table slop. These were actual cooks, actually cooking, because the casino understood that if you fed someone well, they went back to the floor feeling good. And happy people gamble. Sad, hungry, nickel and dimed people go home. The Rio's Carnival World Buffet, which opened in 1993, became arguably the most famous buffet in Vegas history. At its peak, it served over 1 million people a year. 1 million people coming through one restaurant. It had themed food stations representing 9 different international cuisines. It won awards. It was reviewed in national magazines. Travel agents in New York, in Chicago, in Los Angeles were literally recommending a specific buffet as a reason to visit Las Vegas. That is not hyperbole. That is documented fact. And the prices? The Rio charged around $7 for dinner at its peak in the mid-90s. $7. Accounting for inflation, that is roughly $13 to $14 in today's money. The Rio's Carnival World Buffet now charges, well, it doesn't charge anything, because it doesn't exist anymore. But we will get to that. The golden era worked because the incentives were perfectly aligned. The casino needed foot traffic. The buffet generated foot traffic. The players needed value. The buffet delivered value. Nobody had to hold a meeting about it. Nobody had to optimize it. You just kept the food coming and kept the price honest, and everybody won. Simple, elegant, American. The first cracks, when upscale became a dirty word. Here is where the story starts to turn. And I want you to pay attention here, because this is the moment, not the pandemic, not the financial crisis, this moment, where the seeds of destruction were planted. It is the late 1990s. Steve Wynn has just opened the Bellagio. Room rates averaging $200 a night when the strip average was $81. A fine art gallery with actual Picassos on the wall, dancing fountains, hand-blown glass flowers in the lobby, and the message Wynn sent to every other casino operator in this city was not subtle. Tacky is dead. Luxury is the future. And suddenly, the buffet, the beloved, democratic, glorious buffet, started to feel like a liability to people who wore suits to work. You have to understand the psychology of what happened in boardrooms across the Strip during this period. Casino executives who had grown up in the business understood the buffet's function. But a new generation of executives, the ones who had MBAs instead of gambling instincts, started looking at buffets through a different lens. They saw thin margins. They saw food waste percentages. They saw labor costs for all those carving station attendants. They ran the numbers, and the numbers, stripped of context, looked ugly. What they failed to calculate, and this is the catastrophic error that would define the next 20 years, was the indirect value of the buffet, the foot traffic it generated, the goodwill it created, the reason a family of 4 from Phoenix chose your property over the one across the street. You cannot put that in a spreadsheet. So they didn't. They just looked at food cost ratios and shook their heads. The first casualties were subtle. Certain items quietly disappeared from rotation. Snow crab legs, which had been a buffet staple for decades, started showing up only on weekends, then only on special occasions, then not at all. Carving stations that once featured prime rib 7 nights a week got scaled back to 3. Dessert sections shrank. The champagne in the champagne brunch became, and I am being generous here, aspirationally adjacent to champagne. Prices started creeping up. Not dramatically at first. $1 here, $2 there. Nothing that would cause an immediate backlash, just enough to start shifting the math. And the players noticed. They always notice. But they kept coming back because the alternative, paying $35 for a mediocre steak in the hotel restaurant, was still worse. The buffet, even in its diminished form, still represented the best value on the property. For a while, the corporate takeover and the death of the deal. Now we get to the real villain, and I want to name it clearly because it deserves to be named. The villain is not one person. It is not Steve Wynn, though his repositioning of Vegas luxury lit the fuse. It is not any single CEO. The villain is the publicly traded casino corporation and the Wall Street analysts who told them what mattered. MGM Resorts International, Caesars Entertainment. These are not casino companies in the traditional sense. They are publicly traded corporations answerable to shareholders who have never set foot on a casino floor and have no emotional relationship with the institution they are extracting value from. Every quarter, executives stand in front of investors and explain how they will grow revenue and expand margins. Every quarter, without exception. And what do you do when a Wall Street analyst looks at your buffet operation and says, "The margin on this is terrible"? You optimize it. That is the word they use. Optimize, which is corporate for destroy slowly enough that nobody notices. The MGM began a systematic restructuring of its food and beverage operations in the early 2000s that continued, with increasing aggression through the following 2 decades. The Bellagio buffet, once considered one of the finest in the city, saw gradual quality reductions alongside gradual price increases. The formula was consistent across properties. Raise the price, reduce the offering, raise the price again. Blame inflation. Reduce the offering again. Blame supply chain issues. The players kept adapting because the price increases were never quite dramatic enough to trigger a mass exodus all at once. Caesars Entertainment, after its merger with Harrah's in 2005, took a particularly aggressive approach to what the industry calls food and beverage profitability. Harrah's had built its reputation on understanding middle-market players, but post-merger, with billions in debt to service, every cost center became a target. Buffets, with their notoriously difficult labor requirements and unpredictable food costs, were at the top of the list. Here is a number that should make your blood boil. According to industry analysts, a well-run Vegas buffet in the 90s operated on food costs of roughly 40% of revenue, which is actually not bad for the volume it was doing. A celebrity chef restaurant on the same property could operate at 28% food cost. Same building, fewer customers, more margin. So, when you are sitting in a boardroom in 2012 trying to explain to shareholders why you are allocating 10,000 square feet of prime strip real estate to a business that makes less money per square foot than the options replacing it, the buffet starts looking like dead weight. What the spreadsheet never captured was this: the guest who came for the buffet also gambled. The family who saved money on dinner had more to put on the floor. The couple celebrating their anniversary who ate at the buffet and felt valued came back 3 times a year for 15 years. Strip away the buffet and you do not just lose the food revenue, you lose the ecosystem around it. But that calculation requires thinking in decades. Wall Street thinks in quarters. The pandemic pulled the trigger, March 15th, 2020. Every casino on the Las Vegas Strip closed simultaneously for the first time in history. Not during wars, not during recessions, never. Until that day. And every single buffet in Las Vegas shut down with them. Now, here is what the casino companies will never say out loud, but the evidence makes unmistakably clear. The pandemic did not kill the Vegas buffet. The pandemic gave casino executives the cover to do what they had wanted to do for years: kill the buffet and blame the virus. Think about it. When a business closes due to a public health emergency, reopening is a choice. What came back fast? High-margin restaurants, nightclubs, sports betting lounges, bottle service. What never came back? The buffets. The Rio's Carnival World Buffet, 1 million visitors a year, reportedly $45 million in annual revenue, multiple national awards, never reopened. Caesars issued a statement that amounted to a shrug. The Wynn Buffet, gone. The Mirage Buffet, gone. The Venetian, gone. Each time, the same corporate line. We are evolving our dining experience. Evolving. That is the word they use when they mean eliminating. The pandemic closures were initially defended on legitimate public health grounds. Communal stations, shared utensils, crowds. Fair enough in March 2020. But by the time vaccines were available and casino floors were back to shoulder-to-shoulder capacity, somehow the health concerns about buffets lingered just long enough for the leases to be reassigned and the equipment sold off. I am not saying the pandemic was not real. I am saying that when eliminating buffets improved food and beverage margins significantly, you should ask yourself who actually benefited. Because the virus is gone. The buffets are not coming back. And that is not a coincidence. The numbers don't lie. Let me give you the raw data because sometimes you need to see it written out to truly feel the scale of what has been lost. In 2019, there were approximately 35 full-service buffets operating on or near the Las Vegas Strip. As of early 2025, that number stands at 8. 8, from 35 to 8 in less than 6 years. The ones that remain have transformed so dramatically that veterans of the golden era would barely recognize them. The Bacchanal at Caesar's Palace, once the gold standard, now charges between $55 and $75, depending on the day and time. The buffet at Bellagio, which had been one of the great dining experiences in the city for decades, closed permanently. The MGM Grand Buffet, gone. The Aria Buffet, gone. The average dinner price at a remaining strip buffet in 2025 is $53 before tax and tip. And yes, they now expect a tip at buffets, which is a whole separate conversation I am not emotionally prepared to have right now. $53. The Stardust charged $3.50 for its dinner buffet in 1980. Adjusted for inflation, That is approximately $14 in today's money. The current average is nearly 4 times that. And the quality? According to consistent reports across Yelp, TripAdvisor, Reddit, and Google reviews, the quality has not quadrupled. In many cases, it has declined. One of the most telling statistics comes from the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority's own visitor data. Dining satisfaction scores among repeat visitors dropped measurably between 2019 and 2024. Not because Vegas has fewer good restaurants. It has more than ever. But because the category of restaurant that made Vegas dining democratic, accessible, and fun has been systematically eliminated and replaced with options that require either a reservation, a credit card that doesn't flinch at a $200 dinner for two, or both. Jeremy Aguero from Applied Analysis, the man who delivers the economic reality checks to Vegas tourism officials, confirmed in his April 2025 report that food and beverage spending per visitor increased while gaming spending decreased. Translation: they are extracting more money from you for meals while giving you less reason to stay and gamble. The buffet did the exact opposite. It saved you money on food and kept you on the floor. By eliminating it, they did not just remove a dining option. They removed the mechanism that made casual gambling sustainable, what they replaced it with, and why it's worse. Now, I want to be fair here. Because when casino executives are asked about buffet closures, they have an answer ready. They will tell you that they have improved the dining experience. They will point to the celebrity chef restaurants. They will mention the food halls. They will say with a straight face that guests are better served by these new options. Let me tell you what they actually replaced the buffet with. First, the celebrity chef restaurant. Gordon Ramsay has restaurants in 4 Las Vegas properties. Guy Fieri has 2. Bobby Flay, Emeril Lagasse, Jose Andres, Wolfgang Puck. These are talented people, and some of these restaurants are genuinely excellent. They are also $30 to $70 per person for dinner, require advanced reservations, and serve portions calibrated for Instagram rather than hunger. They are not a replacement for the buffet. They are a completely different product aimed at a completely different customer. Calling them a replacement is like closing a public swimming pool and replacing it with a luxury spa and saying the community's aquatic needs have been addressed. Second, the food hall. This is the current darling of Vegas food and beverage executives. The Cosmopolitan's the Wicked Spoon. Actually, wait, that close too. Let me think of another one. The food halls that remain offer a collection of quick service concepts under one roof. Grab-and-go sandwiches, ramen, tacos. These range from decent to genuinely good. They also cost $15 to $25 per item, have no seating for large parties, and create none of the communal, celebratory atmosphere that made the buffet an experience rather than a transaction. Third, and this one is my personal favorite example of corporate audacity, the grab-and-go market. Several major strip properties have installed these. They are convenience stores, dressed up with nice lighting and a curated selection, charging $8 for a bag of chips and $12 for a pre-made sandwich. And somewhere in a marketing meeting, somebody referred to this as an elevated dining option. I would love to have been in that room. I truly would. Here is what all of these replacements have in common. They are higher margin. They require fewer staff. They generate more revenue per square foot. And they serve one customer segment, the visitor who is already spending freely, while completely abandoning the visitor who needed the buffet to make the trip work financially. The families, the retirees on fixed incomes, the young couples taking their first Vegas trip on a budget, the working class loyalists who came 4 times a year because they could afford to. These people have been, to use the language of Caesar's CEO Tom Regg, kicked out, and the buffet was one of their last remaining lifelines. Now it is gone too. Real stories from real people. The statistics matter. But let me tell you what this actually looks like on the ground. On the r Las Vegas subreddit, a thread posted in February 2025 asking about affordable dining options generated over 3,000 comments. The overwhelming tone was not anger, it was grief. People were not just complaining about prices, they were mourning something. One user wrote, "My grandparents brought me to the Circus buffet every summer from 1986 to 1998. My grandmother passed 2 years ago. I went back to find that buffet and it was gone, and I genuinely sat down on a bench on the casino floor and cried. I know that sounds ridiculous, but That buffet was a memory I was trying to touch. Another user, a Vegas local who works in hospitality, wrote, "I have worked on the Strip for 19 years. The buffets employed hundreds of people at each property: cooks, carvers, servers, dishwashers, bussers. When they closed, a lot of those people never found equivalent work. They went to smaller properties or left the industry entirely. Nobody talks about the workforce that disappeared with the buffets." A retired school teacher from Michigan posted on TripAdvisor after her first Vegas trip in 8 years. "The last time I was here, my husband and I ate at the Rio buffet every single night. We budgeted $20 a day for both of us on food and had enough left over to play slots for 4 hours a night. This trip I spent $62 on a dinner. For one at a restaurant, I had to book 3 weeks in advance. I will not be returning. Vegas has decided it does not want people like me. I have decided to agree with them." And then there is Holly Lang, a cocktail waitress at MGM Grand, who was quoted in multiple reports about the decline of Strip foot traffic. She put it plainly: "The people who used to fill this floor at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night, they were the buffet crowd. They ate, they played, they tipped, they came back. Those people are gone. And I feel it in my tips every single night. These are not isolated complaints. These are consistent, recurring testimonials from across the demographic spectrum of Vegas visitor. The message is the same everywhere you look. The buffet crowd has been priced out, pushed out, and told their business is no longer welcome. And Vegas is only beginning to understand the consequences, the bigger picture, what the buffet's death really means. I need you to understand something. The death of the Vegas buffet is not a food story. It is not a restaurant industry story. It is a story about what happens when publicly traded corporations take over institutions that were never designed to be profit maximized and run them through a quarterly earnings machine until the soul is gone. The buffet was the physical embodiment of the Vegas promise. The compact, as one Reddit user memorably described it, between the casino and the ordinary American. You come here, you spend money gambling. We take care of you. We feed you well. We make you feel like you got something for your trouble. That compact sustained this city for 7 decades. It drove the construction of every iconic building on that strip. It filled the seats at the Rat Pack shows. It kept the lights on at the Stardust and the Sands and the Frontier. The buffet was not a side note to the Vegas story. It was a load-bearing wall, and they knocked it down to improve their food and beverage margins. The irony that casino executives seem constitutionally unable to process is that their own data is screaming the consequences at them. Visitor numbers down 11.3% in June 2025 alone, nearly 400,000 fewer people. Strip gaming revenue falling for 4 consecutive months. Hotel occupancy dropping from 88.5% to 85.3% in May 2025. These numbers did not materialize out of nowhere. They are the direct result of a decade-long process of eliminating every mechanism that made Vegas accessible to the middle class. The buffet was one piece of that. The cheap rooms were another. The loose slots, the low table minimums, the free parking, the comp drinks that actually came when you were playing, the shows you could afford to see, all gone or going. And the buffet was the most visible, the most tangible, the most emotionally resonant piece of it. Because you can argue about whether a slot machine is tight. You can rationalize a table minimum. But when you tell someone that the buffet their family has eaten at for 30 years no longer exists and the space is now a grab-and-go market charging $12 for a sandwich, there is no spin that makes that acceptable. University of Nevada, Las Vegas economics professor Stephen Miller has warned of a slow contraction through 2026 as discretionary income returns to pre-pandemic trends. What that polite academic language describes is this: the customers Vegas spent 20 years pricing out are not coming back. You can lower your resort fees tomorrow, and the family from Akron, Ohio, is still not going to book a trip to a city that no longer speaks to them. Trust, once lost, is extraordinarily difficult to rebuild, and Vegas has been systematically destroying the trust of its core customer base for 2 decades. The buffet was the last, most tangible symbol of what Vegas used to be. Its death is not a footnote, it is a eulogy. Is there any hope? I am not someone who ends every video with doom. So, let me tell you what little hope actually exists. And I do mean little. so do not get too excited. There are holdouts. The South Point Hotel Casino off the Strip runs a buffet that regulars consistently describe as a genuine throwback. Reasonable prices, actual food. Portions that acknowledge you are a human being with a functioning appetite and not just a wallet with legs. The Palace Station still operates. A handful of locals' casinos have kept their buffets alive precisely because they never forgot who their customer was, and their floors are not empty. Funny how that works. Resorts World Las Vegas made the deliberate decision to eliminate resort fees entirely. If a property can make that calculation for fees, theoretically, one can make the same calculation for buffets. The math is identical. Volume, loyalty, and indirect floor revenue versus the thin margin optics that terrify Wall Street analysts who have never actually watched a family of four decide where to spend their gambling money. It has been done before. It can be done again. There are also early signs that some executives are beginning to feel the ground shifting beneath them. Caesars CEO Tom Reeg acknowledged publicly that Las Vegas started leaking as a market in June 2025. That is not confident language. That is a man staring at occupancy numbers and running out of people to blame. But real change requires more than discomfort. It requires a casino executive to stand up in an earnings call and say the words no public company CEO wants to say in front of analysts. We made a mistake. We are bringing back the value proposition that built this city at an honest price, with honest quality. That speech requires a kind of courage Wall Street does not reward. And until someone gives it, the decline continues. Here is where I land. The Vegas buffet was not a perfect institution. The lines were long, the coffee was occasionally a war crime, the sneeze guards were a biological necessity I did not always fully trust, but it was ours. It belonged to every person who ever drove through the desert with $150 in their pocket and believed Vegas would meet them halfway. They took that from us. And the least this city owes us is a decent plate of prime rib at a price that does not require a second mortgage. See you in the next one.